So there are so many ways to use this practice, and yet it comes from that basic premise of returning to a sense of safety and connection in our body so that our innate inner wisdom can shine and provide the exact mechanism that we need to move forward.
As human beings, we are capable of amazing self-healing and infinite potential once given permission and the right combination of tools. When you have a strategy and support to discover what's really holding you back and weighing you down, miraculous results become not only possible, but also commonplace. Discovering your true self beyond the roles we play and the masks we wear can be the most exciting adventure of your life if you have the courage to look deep within, face your fears, and overcome your self-limiting beliefs. Welcome to the most exciting adventure of your life. Welcome to a new way of living, and welcome to the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast.
Hi, I'm Casey.
And I'm Andy, and we're on a mission to inspire and guide 1 million people to live a life of purpose, passion, and self-mastery, leveraging the 5 mountains of cutting-edge human development to build extreme mental fitness.
Today's guest, Stacy Claxton, is a transformational coach, somatic integration practitioner, and group facilitator who helps stuck, burdened people find freedom and flow so they feel lighter, fast, and have more energy to do what they love. She guides growth seekers, heart-centered healers, embodied leaders, conscious entrepreneurs, and purposeful parents through their biggest physical, nutritional, mental, emotional, social, spiritual, professional, and financial blocks to discover their boundless inner power and ignite their passion. But she adds the missing piece most mindset trainers and coaches neglect: body-centered tools to rewire the nervous system for lasting change. Her practice blends ancient and modern modalities, including Ayurvedic medicine, yoga, breathwork, meditation, somatic work, trauma healing, prenatal and postpartum care, emotional freedom techniques, functional diagnostic nutrition, and more. The lead dreamer and doer at Souls in Synergy, Stacy combines private client work with writing, speaking, facilitating small groups, and leading live transformational events. She strives to bring heart-centered whole person healing to a hurting, head-driven world. And stick around for the entire show. Stacy's graciously extended a special offer for our listeners, so you're not going to want to miss that. So without delay, welcome, Stacy.
Thanks for having me, Andy and Casey.
Absolutely. So excited to jump in here, but we do like to break the ice by asking, what are you most excited about in your life right now?
I really love this question, partly because I am a constant student of life and someone who has the privilege of interacting with complex human systems every day. And so I find myself endlessly fascinated and excited about things. I think one thing in the moment that is really fascinating me is this translation of my understanding of the human dimension into more of an ecological one. So in my practice, I work a lot with the nervous system and with energy meridians, which have very deep roots in traditional Chinese medicine and ancient Ayurveda, and they undergird the health of this whole human system. And so the question is, what does it look like to view a whole ecosystem, not just this human body that is my body or this human body in front of me, from this grander perspective? And I've been asking these questions. For example, when I survey a swath of land, what information does the terrain give me about the flow of energy, about the meridians more on a macro level? How is the earth? How are the trees and the creeks and the water flow and other dynamic features inviting me into a greater understanding and also into co-creation with space? And this is a personally relevant question for me at the moment because I'm exploring this process of relocating. So literally, where am I moving myself? Where am I finding home and setting down roots and interacting with space? And how can I find a property where I can co-create with place, an oasis where people can come and learn and heal and grow and transform, and do so in this interconnected way that contributes to overall human flourishing and planetary flourishing, combining many different tools and modalities. So it feels like an exciting, I use that word, what excites you now, an exciting adventure in in geography, not only the terrain of the human system, which I've spent years exploring, yet also the geography of this larger system. And it can feel a bit daunting at times, yet also really familiar. I think we're all programmed, we're designed as human beings, and you might agree, Casey and Andy, that we're designed to connect and to make connections both on the micro level and also on the macro level. And that's something that really lights me up, not just in this area of geography and terrain and ecology and human systems, but what is it like to make these connections? What is it like to be a true integrator? And that's one word I like to use a lot. So maybe if I were to distill your question, Casey, it would be integration lights me up. That's what I'm excited about right now. How can I be a better integrator? How can I synergize and connect the dots and weave together different aspects of the human experience, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, social, relational, ecological, environmental, and how can then I integrate other modalities and disciplines and spaces and co-creations of ecosystems in order to allow all of us to have a little bit more fun, a little bit more adventure, and a little bit more flourishing on this planetary existence that we get to share.
Stacy, thanks for sharing that. There's a lot to unpack there, and I guess I'm curious. When you're looking at the land, are you taking into account the physical structures, like the house itself, the properties, the power lines, the street layouts? Does that all play into what you're looking at?
And that's absolutely the delight and the challenge of it, that this understanding of this framework expanded to the macro level can go in myriad directions. And it can encompass the natural environment as well as the built environment. It can encompass the dynamism between human to human interactions, human to plant, human to other animals, human to fungi. How are we relating on this really phenomenal level in a way that often we take for granted? And I certainly have personally walked through a space and not really noticed. And what is it like to notice, to pay attention, to be aware, to listen? And these are skills that I cultivate all the time in my personal practice with clients and with my work. How can I more deeply attune to how I feel here in my body? How can I more deeply listen to what this person or environment is speaking to me, whether through words or another language? And that does mean relating to everything that shows up in that space.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit here. We'd love to hear the origin stories of our guests. Kind of, what brought you to this point? Would you mind just kind of walking us through, where did you grow up and what did you like to do? Or what do you like to do now? That just the whole thing.
Well, then there are many different angles to take from that. I'll start with a little bit of the origin of the work that I do and maybe interweave some of those other questions that you asked, Andy, about what I like to do and how that fits into the flow of who I am. I would say the work that I do now, more related to health and wellness, somatic integration, working with the body and working with the nervous system, came after a number of different experiences. And so part of what I do like to do is play with different spaces. And you might have picked that up already, integrating different spheres that aren't always related. And so as a major in college in both foreign languages and mathematics, I tend to combine the geometry, the numbers of life with the words in the language. And so there's an element of integrating geometric precision, mathematical language and skills with the poetry and the beauty of language and communication. And so I thought, I'm going into publishing, I'm going to work there. I do enjoy the publishing space. I was there for a number of years, really integrating the precision of language and typesetting and design and how we communicate with the fluidity of it, kind of form meets fluidity. And yet I recognized there was something missing from that work. I do still love it. And yet that human connection, that life change, that transformational component, I didn't see the end user directly. And so I decided, I have an interest in health and wellness. I've been an adventurer on my own health journey. And I know a lot of us come into this place because we've been exploring how do we heal ourselves? And so I was like, I'll take a sabbatical year. I'll take a year off from publishing and I'll explore this health and wellness place. needless to say, I haven't turned back. My sabbatical year has become a decade or so, and I've been in the health and wellness place for quite some time, also embarking on this journey. And I know that's something I appreciate about both of you, that you talk about not only on your podcast, but your life and the work you do with people is this journey of transformation. And for me, being in the health and wellness space has been a journey of personal transformation and evolution in my business. And so I started out more with the ancient systems, ancient Ayurveda and yoga, and moved into modern functional medicine. So I can do more of that Western approach, the diagnostic testing, supplementation protocols, combining both East and West, ancient and modern. I was like, yes, this is perfect. And then I started interacting with some amazing clients that weren't getting the results that I knew they were capable of. And I was like, I'm a smart, data-driven practitioner. What am I missing? Is there something holding them back from the deeper healing and freedom that I know is possible? And it took me a little too long, or perfect timing, depending on how you look at it, to discover the truth that we often stay sick, stuck, stressed, or self-sabotaging, not for lack of knowledge, not for lack of what's going on in the head or information, but for lack of awareness in a critical area, which is more of the emotional pain that's lodged deep in the nervous system, more of the body perspective, what's there that we're not aware of, and how is it affecting our daily life? And that light bulb moment, so to speak, plunged me more into the transformational coaching and somatic integration space. And so really, I consider my role now guiding people through their biggest blocks or subconscious patterns, or rewiring their programs so they can access that resourcefulness inside, so they can tap into their boundless inner power. And rather than me being the practitioner who creates a rigid protocol, I infuse some of that precision that I was talking about, some of more of that mathematical approach with a lot of intuitive, perceptive, poetic exploration, where we can tune into that unique being and discover what they need most from the language of their own body and what it's sharing. And that's really what I love to do now. I love teaching people, working with people, allowing them to be seen and heard and validated, and then discover the power within through simple somatic practices. And there are some of them that are quite simple and yet infinitely profound. And that's part of the joy of the continued exploration of working with these unique, complex human systems.
Oh, beautiful. So out of everything that you just said there, the one thing that popped into my head, well, I shouldn't say the one thing, but the question that I have for you is, what happened to you physically and in your body space when you hit pause and took that sabbatical? Mm-hmm. And I'm asking from a place where Casey and I, with our prior company, had a sabbatical. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious to know, like, what happened then when you hit pause on the publishing?
Yeah. Andy, that is a very perceptive question, because I didn't tuck in an important factor of that story. After I moved out of my place, I quit my job. I turned in my notice. I quit my job. I moved out of my place. I put everything in my car. I was taking a 4-month road trip. And I had planned out various stops along the way. I was going to go through woofing. I don't know if either of you are familiar with worldwide opportunities on organic farms. I figured, I'd learn a little bit about the land and herbalism and plants. I was going to study Ayurveda. I'd stop in these places, and not even, I would say, less than maybe a month into my journey, I was trail running and I broke my ankle. And that was not part of the plan. And so you asked, what happened when I pressed pause? And what I learned, and I learned so much from that summer, is I thought I'd press pause to actually pause and listen and explore, and I was still going. Mm-hmm. And I was forced by my body, a lesson from that body's wisdom, to actually pause, to slow down, to stop running, and to tune in to what it's like not only to be someone who's embarking on a healing profession, but also to be someone who's struggling and physically in pain. And what is it like to tend to that system and understand that sometimes our system is cluing us into patterns in our body. And I wasn't ready to go to trauma and the nervous system and the work I do now in that moment, but I can look back in hindsight and say, that broken ankle actually invited me into the work that I do today because it clued me into a cycle of behavior that was unhealthy, that was really based in some sort of traumatic reenactment where I kept having injuries and accidents and broken bones or stitches, whatever the case may be. And I've learned from that experience so much more than perhaps I could have learned if I'd followed the stops on my pre-planned journey. So that's a little bit of a bonus, a footnote to the story from that very perceptive question, Andy.
Yeah, thank you. For me specifically, and I'm going somewhere with this, is, when we took our sabbatical, I think we had 6 weeks off.
Mhm.
And the first couple of weeks were go, go, go. We had concerts we went to. We were up in the mountains in Colorado. We were in Belize. And then probably by the time we hit the big island of Hawaii, I was like, wow, I can slow down a little bit. And the noise from all the daily do lists and meetings, it just kind of finally dropped away, and I was able to hear what I needed to do in life, right?
Mhm.
So not everybody has that ability to hit pause on their career. How do people tap into that? How do people tap into that space when they can't hit pause on their career?
Yes. I love the way that you tied that together because it's again a perfect integration of the macro and the micro. What I was talking about earlier, where we can take those macro experiences, the 6 week sabbatical, the 4 month road trip, the year to explore the world, or even a vacation. And yet, most of us need to press pause on a very daily level, and it could be 29 seconds at a time. And that's something I tell my clients all the time. One round of tapping, which is one practice I use all the time in my healing containers, takes about 29 seconds. And it allows you to press pause on that inner chaos, the chatter, the clutter, everything going on in the mind and the body, and allows you to drop in a little more deeply. What's going on in the body right now? What's alive in this moment? Who am I? And do I really want to do what I plan to do next? It could be as simple as, do I need to send that email? Do I need to respond to that text? Or it could be as open ended as, am I walking in my life purpose? And simple somatic practices, whether it's through the breath, the body, tapping, other tools that I bring into my containers, all of these are very simple, very easy, accessible ways to do exactly what you said, Andy, to say, I can take a breath now. I can pause and figure out, why am I here on this grand life adventure? What is my smaller role in this grander story of the human collective?
When I think about energy and vitality, I think about a kid. They have the energy to play, run around, climb things. That energy that feels like you just can't contain yourself. It's the stuff we've always wished they could just bottle up and sell to us, right? Well, this company's found a way to do just that. Amari's Happy Juice Pack. Mood, motivation, energy, things our bodies can naturally produce when both our guts and our brains are happy and communicating. And we can actually improve that process of communication across the axis of the gut and the brain. This is cutting edge science. This is game-changing information. This is where science meets soul. This is Amari, and we're helping people feel better naturally. Boost your serotonin and GABA. Balance your neurotransmitters. Nourish your gut. The things that make you want to do. Start feeling better the natural way. Check out the links in the show notes for discounts and more information.
Oh, thank you. So what we're talking about here is, correct me if I'm wrong, somatic movement or somatic integration.
Mhm.
So can we address what that means first? So for people who don't understand the somatics.
Yes, and that's a perfect place to start. And so I use somatic integration more as an umbrella term to describe how you're communicating. And it really is a communication with your body, with yourself, with others, with the world, with your passion and purpose, with different ecosystems. So somatics refers to the body. So how is your body communicating with and integrating everything that shows up in its space? And really, it invites the practice of deeply listening. So, listening to feedback. How are you walking, moving? How are you breathing? How are you holding yourself? What are you telling yourself? And so, it's very much body related, physical, but it's also mental, like making conscious the thought loops and patterns that we have, making conscious the emotions that come up and the labels that we give them. Sometimes emotions are more sensation, and we've simply assigned a label that we assigned years ago, and it might not be relevant now. And so bringing the awareness to everything that we experience as a complex human system, I fit under this category of somatic integration. And the way that we often do that is very physical, whether with hands or breath, because it allows us to have something to draw our attention to. And it allows us to drop more out of this head thinker space into the infinite wisdom of the body. Because the body stores everything, all of our life experiences, those that we consider quote unquote good and those that we consider quote unquote bad. It stores all of it as information that we have access to when we drop into that body-centered place. Does that help provide a framework around?
Absolutely. Thank you for explaining.
Is EFT as you described it. And so tapping is one of the tools of that. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's a great clarification. I've mentioned EFT a few times. I often use that as a container for bringing a person into use of other tools and modalities or ways of expressing or understanding their being. And so tapping itself, I can give you a little bit more background on in case some of your listeners are unfamiliar with it. I call it tapping, and many people call it tapping because that's what you're doing. You're actually taking your fingertips and tapping on or stimulating specific points in the body. And I'll get to that momentarily. The other term, EFT, or emotional freedom techniques, is more of a technical term that explains a very loose collection of techniques. It's plural for a reason, because we can practice a basic sequence of tapping points, and yet you can use it in very versatile contexts. And so in that way, it's very simple, and yet it's also quite deep and very versatile. And I consider it one of the simplest tools of self-discovery, self-healing, and self-transformation, where we can really empower an understanding of who we are on the inside and liberate some of the emotional root causes of pain or suffering or stuckness that are in the body, so that we can bring that body, our whole system, to its natural state of safety and connection. Because our system naturally wants to feel connected and safe and whole, and it wants to heal in the ways where it feels like it's not fully thriving. And so EFT is a way to do that really quickly. Like I said, we take our fingertips, we tap on these points, and these points correspond to the end points of energy meridians. And so as I was talking about in the beginning, these ancient systems have documented energy meridians in the body, and each of these meridians corresponds to different organs, different organ systems, and each organ also holds on to different emotions and memories and residue of our life experience. And so when we apply pressure to these endpoints, we're opening up some of those channels, and we're providing access to things that have been stored in the body. And so essentially it's like self-administered acupuncture, if you've ever had acupuncture before, but you don't need the needles. You simply apply pressure. You allow the body to calm down, because that's another really critical piece about tapping and about using this sequence of points. We're sending a healing message to the brain. And if we dive a little bit into how trauma in the brain works, the amygdala, that alarm center, is primed to notice fear or activation or being triggered. And when we start to tap on these points, moving through the sequence, we start to calm down that amygdala and say, okay, maybe there's no alarm here. Maybe there's no danger, whether it's real or perceived. Maybe I can start to calm down. And when the body starts to calm down, we move into that parasympathetic or rest and digest response. And that's where healing can happen. When we're in that stress to that fight or flight response, that's not where the body heals. It's primed for action. And yet when we can calm down the nervous system and say, oh, now I can heal, that's when the body perceives it safe to then interact with some uncomfortable or unpleasant things from our body, our felt sense, or from the past. So that said, we're going to be tapping, and then we bring up unpleasant memories or thoughts or sensations or feelings. And the body says, oh, whoa, what's going on here? I feel safe now. I feel settled and relaxed. And now I'm working with this unpleasant sensation. I think I need to rewire how I think about it. And that's where the reprogramming, repatterning comes in, because the body creates a new way of interacting with that emotion. And suddenly people have these flashes of insights. Oh, that emotion is guiding me toward this. Or, oh, I'm tuning into an intuitive instruction about my future. Or, actually, I've gotten the message of that pain. I guess I don't need that pain anymore. And so what it does is it allows, in a very simple way, the body to heal itself where it needs that healing most. And for some people, that healing is very, very physical. They're tapping with the intention of working on physical pain, tension, a chronic diagnosis, digestive distress, hormone imbalances, something that they have some physical evidence of. And yet for other people, it's more of a mental exploration. Like, I've got this limiting belief. I've got this thought about myself that isn't helpful and I can't seem to overcome it. Or I want to do my exercise regimen, or, I want to get on that healthy diet plan and I keep sabotaging myself. What's going on here? Tapping can be used to figure out the root cause of that and actually allow yourself to enter into those decisions in a new way. And naturally, it can be used for emotional issues as well, emotional freedom technique. So if you're feeling any sort of stress and tuning into the emotion about it, whether there's anxiety or anger, frustration, or maybe there's a sense of sadness or loss, and really tuning into that emotion. It can also extend to just about everything. And you feel free to ask other ways to use it, but some of them can be around optimization. I know you all work with the 5 mountains and helping people really master who they are and mental fitness. And so it can be used for really building that resilience and that sense of commitment and confidence, and moving into a sense of purpose and spiritual growth and professional calling. So there are so many ways to use this practice, and yet it comes from that basic premise of returning to a sense of safety and connection in our body, so that our innate inner wisdom can shine and provide the exact mechanism that we need to move forward.
Beautiful. Where do we start?
Great question. Well, let's dive in and do a little practice then.
That sounds great.
Does that feel fun and
absolutely?
exciting?
Yeah. Now, if somebody's driving in their car listening, should they pull over first?
Yes, I would advise, if you're going to tap along with us, and I can give a little bit of background, so don't pull over quite yet. But when we do get to the actual tapping point, you might want to hit pause if you're listening from the car or you're multitasking, so that you can actually carve out a little time and space to do this in a safe, effective way. But I'll give a little bit of context first, so that when we dive in, it makes a little bit more sense. And so I love to frame the conversation around tapping before I explain the points with a few key questions. And I would say maybe 3 questions that come up most often. People ask me this all the time. So in order to be most effective with your tapping, I'd love to share 3 thoughts that really are instrumental in getting the best results. And the first one would be, people say, Stacy, why are you focusing on the quote unquote negative or the bad or the unpleasant sensations? And I kind of teased that already, that we tend to start with things in our body as we're tapping that feel uncomfortable. Maybe there's a pain or a tension or something that we don't quite want to look at. And so people are like, Stacy, I don't want to go there. If I call out all this negative stuff, or if I focus on it, aren't I going to attract more of it? And so I like to dispel that myth right away, because it is a really valid question. And yet in the context of tapping, it's actually the best entry point. It's the portal of saying, what is most uncomfortable right now? How can I bring it from subconscious to conscious, give it a voice, express it to the full, so that I no longer need to let it operate in the background. And things that we're not focusing on, if they're painful or uncomfortable, are often still working under the surface. And by allowing it to come to the surface, we create space for a new truth. And I like to consider it not that we're taking stuff out of ourselves and putting in new stuff, because we're all really amazing human systems. It's simply like maybe cleaning a window, for example, that we're removing the residue by focusing, oh, okay, there is some dirt here. There's some things here that isn't fully serving this whole picture. What happens if I work with that? I express it. Maybe I clean some of it or erase it or now I can see, oh, there's some light here. I can see what's shining through the window. I can see what's happening on the inside. And that act of seeing ourselves, seeing our true nature, seeing how we're designed to shine in the world is what then catalyzes our unique understanding of our role and what we need to enter into next. And so that's one question I get a lot, and I wanted to pre-frame our exploration with that. The second question that I get quite often is about the words that we say. And so throughout tapping, I encourage people to speak aloud into their own space. Something really transformative happens when you use your voice and audibly express what you've been keeping inside. And so many people will say, Stacy, I'm not good with words. I don't know what to say. What if I say the wrong thing? And I get it, because if you search online for tapping, especially, you'll come up with oodles and oodles of tapping scripts, or people that go to YouTube and look up tapping. It's like there's this script and this magic formula, and you tap here and you say this, and you need to know what to say. But the refreshing truth is there really isn't a magical formula with these kind of somatic practices. It's not about the right words, and you don't need to be eloquent and articulate or poetic, and you can't really do it wrong. It's really about the emotion and the experience of it. So if all you do is tune into your unique human system, your body, and tune into the emotion that you feel, notice where you feel it, how intense it is, what it's like, and you start tapping, you're going to get some results. In fact, a lot of the work that I do with clients and with many of my groups is some silent tapping for a while. So you can drop out of your head and really get into your body. Mm-hmm. And you'll notice then that compared to some of the scripts or formulas you might get online, my style as a practitioner, and I've cultivated this over years of working with thousands of different people in groups and individually, is a lot more freeform. It's a lot more fluid. It's allowing you to access your freedom and giving yourself permission to simply notice what comes up. And so I'm going to invite both of you to do that here too. Even if we do a little bit of tapping with words, or I cue some words, allow yourself to notice what's coming up in your unique space. And then one more third question that I get quite often, and I want to toss this out for listeners because it really is very important. People often say, Stacy, what if I have some trauma? Will this process re-trigger it? Is it re-traumatizing? If I focus on something that feels painful or unpleasant, am I going to dig up something scary? And this is a really important question because I do work with trauma in my practice, and making sure that as coaches and practitioners, we're informed about people's past is really significant. And I love to offer people the possibility that we all do have some trauma, and it's not so much about exactly what happened to us, but how our nervous system processed it, what happened inside of us, and was our nervous system able to handle it, or was our nervous system overwhelmed? Often because that event or that experience happened too fast, or it was too much or too soon at a young age. And so if our nervous system is holding on to something that it wasn't able to process, we may experience the residue of that. And that's really what trauma is. And given that, all of us have some aspect of it. It doesn't need to be the big T, life-changing, huge, life-shattering traumas. It can be those small traumas. Some things we might not be aware of, like the birth traumas or prenatal trauma or attachment trauma at a young age. And I love people to simply be gentle with that, knowing that this process could bring up things. It's like, wow, I didn't know that memory from childhood has actually left me feeling humiliated or unable to speak up or use my voice or stand my ground. Wow, now I can see it. And now I know it's there. And we can develop a very compassionate, understanding way to work with trauma. And when we use somatic tools like tapping, we're telling the body it's safe while we do that. And so it's very different from working with trauma and talking about it. talking simply tends to reactivate the system and re-trigger. Whereas when we work with these traumas, whether they're the small t ones or the big ones, we tell the body it's safe first. And then we allow the processing to happen. And that's why I really love these tools, because I've seen people, even in a single session, repattern a trauma that they've spent decades either suppressing or working with and not knowing how to handle. Because once the body is given that sense of safety and permission, it knows what to do. And that said, I will caution those of you who are listening and saying, I do know I have a bit of trauma in my life. You might, as we do this simple practice exercise, not pick that big trauma right away. You might decide to work with a practitioner one-on-one, provide that container of safety before you dive in on your own.
This episode of Fierce Planet Adventures podcast is brought to you by 5 Mountain Coaching, licensed unbeatable mind coaching, integrated accelerated vertical growth across 5 domains of cutting-edge development, designed by retired Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine. Learn the big 4 skills of mental toughness and resiliency. Discover the 6 pillars of performance. Test your mettle with custom-created crucibles across all 5 domains. Visit 5mountaincoaching.com to schedule your free 1-hour unbeatable mind coaching session. That's the number 5, mountaincoaching.com. Begin your journey to becoming unbeatable today. Wonderful.
Excellent. Any questions that you have pre-framing before we dive into the actual practice?
Nope, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to run through the sequence of points, and we're just going to get to know those points. We're not going to add any intention or any words just yet. And for those of you who are listening from your computer or at a place to grab it, I think, Casey, you mentioned you'll have some of the goodies in the show notes, but if you go to soulsandsynergy.com/Fierce Planet, listeners can download the handout that explains the tapping points and process that we're going to run through. But we can do it live here. So come into a comfortable seat and take a moment to notice your body in space, because noticing, it's one of the most important things that you can do. And so it might be an act of noticing your feet on the ground. What is it like to relate to this ground that you're sitting with, standing on? What is it like to relate to what you're actually sitting on, your body in a chair or cushion or wherever you find yourself? Just noticing the body here for a moment and taking a full breath, whatever that looks like for you, and noticing, what is the breath like here? Not trying to change it, simply cultivating that sense of curiosity and awareness. And before we actually start tapping, I'm going to invite you to tune into your system and check in, because you will notice shifts. They may be subtle, they may be obvious, and it's good to have a starting point. As you know, from any journey of transformation, it's good to know where you are now. And so take a moment right now as you take another deep breath and notice your feet and your body in space to tune into your physical system. Simply make a note of anything that's coming up for you. You might also tune into your mental space. What's alive for you right there, right now. Tune in briefly to your emotional body. Is there any emotion that is showing up in your system? And it could have been that you brought it into this time together, or it could have been, wow, just in the act of noticing, you realized, there's a little bit of that lodged right here in my being. And then tune in briefly to your spiritual body. Is there anything that's calling to you related to your spirit or the intangible part of yourself? And with another breath, notice your relational body, how you are in connection, whether with other human beings, with your ecosystem at large, your greater community, or your sense of purpose. And simply making a note of all of that, thank your system for collaborating with you, and bring your attention to your hands right now, keeping the eyes closed. If you feel comfortable listening to my voice, I'm going to cue these points. And again, you'll have the handout later to refer to it, but allowing your full attention to come to your hands and feeling the energy run through the center of the palms and down through the fingertips. I invite you to pick one hand. It doesn't matter which one. And with a full breath, take the fingertips to the top of the head. So the crown of the head is this topmost point. You can imagine 2, 3, or 4 fingers touching this point where a string attached to the ceiling might lift you a little bit higher. Maybe you even notice your body gets a little bit longer simply from that act of awareness. And you can tap here gently, tapping at a rate that feels right to you and a pressure that feels right to you. And then taking a nice full breath and moving the fingertips to the inside of the eyebrow. The inside of the eyebrow is right next to the bridge of the nose on one side. It's where the eyebrow ends and the bridge of the nose starts. So you're tracing the eye bone there. You can bring 2 or 3 fingers to that point. As we go through this first round, I'm going to invite you simply to notice each point. As I said, they're connected to different meridians, so they might bring up different sensations, different emotions, or even thoughts. As you take another breath, let those fingertips move to the side of the eye. The side of the eye is the point at the edge of the eyebrow, still tracing the eye bone, right next to the temple. And as you tune into this point, you might notice that it feels a little different, or it brings up different information from your body compared to the other points. And then tapping underneath the eye, still tracing the eye bone here. This point is directly beneath the pupil. And taking a full breath here and noticing, what is it like to be with this point at this present moment, bringing all your awareness here. And then tapping underneath the nose with a nice full breath. This point is just beneath the nose and above the upper lip. Tuning in with the body, noticing if it's giving you any information right now. And then the fingertips move to the chin crease beneath the lower lip. Taking a full breath here. Our next point is the collarbone point. And if you find the collarbone about an inch or 2 to the right or left of midline, and then just beneath it, there is an indentation. Some people feel like their fingers find a home there. It's almost like, oh, there's the point. I can find it. My fingers belong there. Again, you can stay with 2 or 3 fingers. Some people like to tuck all 5 fingers in that point, or even tap with the hand across the center of the chest and hit both collarbone points. Tapping is a very fluid process, and there's so many amazing variations, all of which are quite effective. As you take a breath here, notice what this point brings up for you. Some points you might find more calming or comfortable. Other points you might find more tender or evocative. Simply notice anything your system is bringing up for you now. And then we tap underneath the arm. This underarm is about a hand width or 4 inches under the armpit. So if you take the hand and stick it under the armpit, it's about where your pinky would fall, tapping across the body on the other side. Some people actually like to tap on the same side and do more of like a monkey type arm. So other people like to cross over the body and tap on the opposite side. Whatever feels more natural for you, go for it and experience this point for a moment and a nice deep breath. And then we're going to tap here on this side of the hand. This is the fleshy part of the hand right next to the pinky. And take a deep breath and notice this point. Some tapping practitioners like to start at this point. I tend to be a little bit more fluid, jumping in and tapping. I like to start at the top of the head often because it reminds us that we're connected to something more powerful and incomprehensible, something more exciting and interconnected than we can possibly imagine. And so we're going to jump back up to that top of the head point. And this time I'm going to run more quickly through that sequence to help you get the hang of it. So simply listen to my voice starting at the top of the head here. Nice full breath at each point. And then inside of the eyebrow. And tapping on the side of the eye. And under the eye. And tapping under the nose. And chin crease, remembering to breathe at each point. Collarbone point. The side of the body, under the arm. And side of the hand. Take a nice full breath here and then let both hands relax, keeping the eyes closed just for a moment and tuning in, noticing any information that your system is giving you right now. Listeners can tune into their own space. I'm curious, Casey and Andy, what you're noticing simply from the act of tapping without bringing it any deeper.
Relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
Energy flowing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can feel where I did tap. There's more energy going on there in those spaces.
Yeah.
Almost like a buzz
Yes.
type of feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those are quite common side effects or primary effects of tapping. That sense of relaxation, calming, feeling energy flow, feeling the tingling, the movement of our entire system. And that's one reason that tapping can be a really quick, I said 29 seconds to tune in. It can be a very quick way to calm down the nervous system, provide stress relief. So if you're about to enter into a situation or you're switching gears or just feel like, oh, I'm not in my body, I'm a little frazzled, tapping can be a quick way without bringing in any words to calm down the system. And then, as you might imagine, if we then take it deeper, if we work with a specific process or goal or something that's holding us back or a pain, when we come from this place of being tuned in and feeling the energy flow, suddenly it's very quick to repattern what it is that the system has been asking for. And that's where we take it next. And I can guide you if you want to go through a couple more rounds on how we might take some word or intention into that.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Yeah, excellent. So question for you, either personally, Casey and Andy, or the clients that you work with, what's a common issue or something that you hear often? Like, I'm stressed about this, or I can't seem to do that. Like what comes up often in your practice?
What comes to mind right now is people having trouble getting started or sticking with a plan, a goal, a program, a practice.
Yeah.
And it's because many times competing priorities, getting distracted by maybe the unimportant and irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that's definitely a big one. I love that you zoomed right in on there because so many of us know what we need to do. And for some reason, we just can't seem to do it, whether it's distractions or it's not a priority or something else. So let's tune into this for a moment. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. And again, listeners, if you're driving, you might want to push pause and come back to this later. When you find yourself in a place where you can focus for a few minutes here, close your eyes and tune into one area of your life where you're not taking action. And it could be something very simple, like I can't seem to send that one email to that one person. Or it could be something big, like I need to quit my job and do something I'm passionate about. Or it could be somewhere in the middle, like I want to do a 30-day health challenge. So find an area where you're not quite taking action on something, but you'd like to. And as you think about actually taking that action, I'm going to invite you to start tapping on the collarbone point. So start tapping here on the collarbone point and tune into this particular area and focus on just one. When you think about taking action, what starts to happen in your physical system? So imagine yourself, okay, it's day one of my new diet plan, or I'm hitting send on that email, or I just put in notice at my job, whatever it is. Or maybe it's a fitness challenge. Like there I am doing that Spartan race. What starts to happen in your system? Where is there some discomfort or some angst or a little bit of apprehension? And as we jump up to the top of the head, tapping there with a nice deep breath, I'm going to invite you to acknowledge where you feel that tension or discomfort. And it could be bringing your awareness there. If you're tapping in your own space, you might speak aloud, moving to the inside of the eyebrow. I feel this tension in my, and really call out where you're feeling it. And then tapping on the side of the eye, honoring exactly where you feel the discomfort about it. Like, ooh, there's a clenching in my jaw, or maybe there's some tension in my gut. And tapping under the eye here, taking a nice deep breath, or maybe it feels like your feet are really heavy, like I can't take that step. Or maybe like you're carrying a lead weight. Notice where you feel weight or tension or apprehension about taking this particular action. As you tap under the nose, for those of you who can speak aloud, I would encourage you to say that. I feel all this tension in mine, or it's so overwhelming, or maybe as you tap on the chin crease, it's more of a belief like, I could never do that. That's not possible for me. Nice deep breath, tapping on the collarbone point. Maybe as you're noticing where you feel this resistance in your body or in your mind, you're recognizing that there's an emotion wrapped up inside of it. Maybe it's tucked away on the inside. If you were to go into that area of pain or tension, maybe there's an emotion that's crouched in the corner. Or maybe there's an emotion wrapped around it that's preventing you from getting inside. As you take another deep breath and tap under the arm, know that your system's taking you exactly where you need to go, and notice if there's an emotion here. Maybe it's that scared feeling of being a fifth grade and being 5 years old and going to kindergarten. As you tap on the side of the hand, maybe there's some frustration. Like, I've tried 30-day diet challenges before and I never succeed. Maybe there's a past trauma around, I've tried this and it didn't work out. As you return to the top of the head with a nice deep breath, notice if there's an emotion here. Maybe there's a sense of loss, like I've already lost so much time and I haven't found my passion yet. Am I going to be able to find it this time? Tapping on the inside of the eyebrow, giving yourself permission to express out loud any emotion that's showing up for you related to this particular area of action. And tapping on the side of the eye, I recognize the fact, speaking aloud, that I have so much to name whatever emotion is coming up for you, wrapped up in this issue. And as you tap under the eye, it makes a lot of sense. And you might take some time here to notice why it makes sense. Like, wow, I've felt this way before. Wow, my body thinks that this time is going to be like last time. Tapping under the nose, I give my system permission to know that it is safe and healing to experience this now. And chin crease, I give my system permission to know that it is safe and healing to experience this particular emotion or sensation, whatever's coming up for you. Collarbone point, I also give my system permission to know that it's possible, for the present and future to be different from the past. Under the arm, I'm open to the possibility that my system is already creating a new present and a new future. Side of the hand, and I'm open to exploring what that might look like. And I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath and return to the collarbone, keeping the eyes closed here, tapping and noticing, giving yourself the curiosity, the creativity, and maybe the understanding or the compassion to consider a different present and future. What would it be like to enter into a space where, I wonder if I could dip my toe in that water. I wonder if I could start with day one and be really excited about it. I wonder if I could see myself taking that action because I am resourceful. I do know what to say. It's possible for me to use my voice. It's possible for me to stand up. It's possible for me to move my feet. Tune into your unique system right now and what exactly is showing you that is possible for you in this very moment, given the resourcefulness you already have inside. And then allow yourself, simply being curious and playful, to explore what it might feel like, look like, or sound like. To take one inspired action. It could be a tiny inspired action toward moving forward in that area where you'd really like to. And then with a nice deep breath, I'm going to invite you to reach your hands overhead, nice big stretch, keeping the eyes closed, expanding your entire field, not only from your own human system, but expanding, stretching, opening up the heart space, the mind space, the spirit and the body, and your connection with self and others and your entire ecosystem to this new possibility. Exhaling with a sigh, letting the hands relax. And tuning in, paying attention right now to where your system is, what information you're getting from the physical plane, from your mental space, your emotional state, and your spiritual and relational body. Allowing yourself to acknowledge any insight or clues that your system has given you through this process. Celebrating yourself for having the courage to explore where you need to go most. And then inviting this new possibility into your life with a smile of gratitude and coming back into your own space. Andy and Casey, I'm curious what that process was like for you.
Yeah, it was very interesting. My experience, or what I experienced at the end, the awareness piece was calm, peaceful energy. And I started out this conversation, 45 minutes ago with my hip hurting, my right hip. I just had a hip replacement about 4 months ago. Little tight, little achy. It's dissipated right now.
Yes. A fantastic observation. And I love what you shared there, that you're coming into this on the other side with a sense of calm, and that the pain that you'd noticed is not aching like it was. And that's the amazing thing about, regardless of what we work on, whatever issue you focus, people often say, I wasn't thinking about my head or my hip, and suddenly that pain is gone. Wow, there must be some link there between whatever's coming up for me mentally, emotionally, and also my physical system. So I love that you're allowing yourself to notice a shift there. And The amazing thing that you also know, teaching people how to use mindset and work with their whole human system, is that when you come from a place of calm and being collected and simply more embodied, you have creative ideas. So not only does pain diminish and the system's primed for healing, but from that place, you have creative ideas. You see new possibilities. Things show up in your field, and there's synergy and integration and connection. And that's where the spark of life really takes off. And so from this place, Andy, when we get off of this conversation, I imagine for the rest of the day, you're actually going to notice some more things in your life. You might have a new sense of awareness about this hip and your recovery and how it is at play in your larger story and how it can be of service.
Beautiful. Love it.
Yeah. Casey, any thoughts from you?
Yes. First, just the clarity in my mind, and just not having to clear thoughts or, redirect thinking. But then some insight of something I've been working on is utilizing my voice more. And part of that struggle has been sharing a lot, and some insight of too complicated, I need to simplify something popped in. So just overcomplicated was the message that came up.
Yes.
So yeah, very insightful and something to work on moving forward. It's great.
Casey, I'm so glad that you expressed that. And two really important themes emerged from your share. One being that idea of using your voice. So I'm grateful for you for speaking up and saying, I'm actually working on using my voice, and I'm using my voice to demonstrate that. And it's something that I work with so often, especially working with leaders, other entrepreneurs, people who are in the healing space, or even parents that want to leave their home and speak up more, or really everyone in any season of life, communication is fundamental. And so helping people remove some of those blocks to actually use their beautiful voice and use their words, their thoughts, however they express themselves to the fullest. And tapping is a wonderful way to open up that channel. So I love that you brought that in. It's something I see quite often. I'm going to celebrate you on your journey to doing that more. And then also opening to the possibility, like you said there, that it doesn't need to be complicated. And that's another beautiful reminder that tapping often brings us to, that, wow, I've felt overwhelmed by all of these possible actions or all these different options, or I need to do all of these things before I can take that step. And tapping clears away all the clutter and the confusion and the chaos, and often gives us a very laser focused action step, or it gives us something simple to start with that feels manageable, so that we can feel empowered and generate momentum before we need to do all the things. And so I love that you added that, because again, that's another really important benefit of tapping. And I see it all the time, and people suddenly become action takers when they realize, I always used to be a procrastinator. I used to be overwhelmed, or I couldn't get things done. And now look what I'm doing in my life. And that's part of what makes this work exciting for me, because I get to see those life transformations happen in real time, because it can happen very quickly with tapping. Once you rewire and repattern, suddenly you can be a different person. Whereas with diet change, sometimes it takes a month to see the effects of those extra vegetables. But with this work, it really can be transformational. And at the same time, not everyone's journey is quick. You might have one inspired action. And as you both teach quite often, it's a journey of transformation. And so I simply teased a very short tapping sequence. We could have taken each of the things I invited you into and gone a lot deeper, which I do with clients. What aspect of this, what aspect of that emotion, what memory is here? And we can explore many of those nuances to really catalyze this journey one step at a time, and pull back the layers of what people need to see most about themselves.
Wonderful. So it seems pretty straightforward, and with the handout that folks can download, definitely a big help. Are there mistakes that people can make when doing tapping on their own?
Yeah. Great question. And I alluded to a few of them earlier, one being shying away from the discomfort.
Mhm.
And so there is a tendency, oh, let me just tap in the things I want. Like I'm finding my purpose, I'm doing the thing. And starting with the uncomfortable is usually a quicker, more effective portal into what's really holding us back. So that's one thing. Start with what actually feels uncomfortable in your system, the pain, the tension, the limiting belief. The other piece is not getting hung up on the words. And so focusing on the sensation, the feeling, bringing your awareness to the body. Another it's not so much a mistake as a common objection that I hear often is, Stacy, I'm a busy human. I don't have time for another modality. I already do all the things, I already practice all these different tools, and I have got my exercise regimen, and I'm focusing on this and mindset. And the beautiful thing is that tapping doesn't take a lot of time. Like I said, even a round or two, a minute or two is enough to shift the system to a place of greater calmness and clarity. And so one mistake is not getting started and simply practice using it. And that's the one I see most often, that we have this fantastic tool and it doesn't need to be onerous. It doesn't need to be something we add to a long list. What I've noticed as an integration practitioner is that I integrate it into the other tools that I use. And so it's a superlative adjunct for things you're already doing. So if you have a meditation practice, for example, do a couple of rounds of tapping beforehand and you drop more quickly into the meditative place.
Yeah.
If you have a movement or fitness practice and you really want to fire yourself up to be ready to tackle a big challenge, do a little tapping before you do that. If you do more work with flow states or expanded states of consciousness with breath work or plant medicine or anything of that nature, doing some tapping beforehand and afterward to integrate these experiences supercharges the transformation that's possible. And so that's one way that I really encourage people to not shy away from using it and combining it with the things that you're already doing to make the most use of the time that you have.
Wonderful. Curious, we sometimes do breath work in groups. Do you also do tapping in groups?
Yes. I love that you brought up the groups as well as the breath work, because I'll speak to breath work as well. I do operate in breath work communities, and that is another fantastic tool. And I actually teach integration of EFT with breath work. Breath work and tapping go really well together, and they both work really well in groups. And so one of the things that I've found is that anytime we're doing transformational work and we can do it in connection with other humans or with our environment, the results are exponential. And that's something that actually has been proven in some research too. So for those of you who like the data and the precision out there, there was a study a while back, I think it was 2012, that researched tapping and what it did in the body. And they actually realized that tapping reduced the stress hormone cortisol by about 14% after an hour of tapping, and it changed 72 genes. And so there was actually this measurable physiological effect in the body. Well, they did a replicated study with a twist in 2020, where instead of tapping one-on-one with a practitioner, the people in the study tapped in a group setting. And the cortisol reduction, I think it started at 24% in just one-on-one tapping, went to 43%. So that's
Wow.
unheard of. I mean, if you go take a nap right now, you might get a 14% reduction in cortisol. Tapping in a group really switched off that flight or fight response, allowed people to connect, drop into places of healing, and that's just 1 hour. And so personally, I have 1 hour groups all the time where we're tapping in containers, and given technology, I have people that are global in my group. So we're tapping around the world, different time zones, different people coming together, holding space for one another, doing our inner work together in a way that ripples out into community. And that speaks exactly to what lights me up. Your first beautiful question, Casey, that really about that integration of our own system with other people and ecosystems, and the ripple effects that are possible when we do our work together, when we express the healing that's possible, when other people hear other people share about their tapping experience and realize, wow, I resonate. That's me too. I'm not alone in that. And we can grow and transform together. So yes, absolutely. Tapping in groups is one of the most powerful ways to do it. And that's also why I offer several tapping group programs so that people can dive in and experience that.
Fantastic. I love how complicated and simple humans are.
Yes.
And on that note, you set up a special offer for listeners that wanted to give this a try. If you wouldn't mind explaining what you have.
Sure. So I do have an ongoing group program where people come together from around the world and tap for an hour each week. So it's a small commitment for big change. And my community is Freedom and Flow. And many people are looking for that sense of connection. They're also looking for healing, and they're also looking for a tool that they can practice together under the guidance of a practitioner, so they don't need to worry about what to say or where to go. And then they can continue to work on that over the course of the week, and then come back and reconvene with the community the next week. And I'm offering to those of you who are listening to the podcast 50% off the first month to try it out, to do more of a macro experience of this micro teaser that we did tapping here today. And so if you go to soulsinsynergy.com, and I imagine you'll have those links in the show notes, but it's SOULSINSYNERGY.com. And you type in, or you go to the checkout page, and you use coupon code Fierce Planet, all caps, one word, for the name of your podcast, Fierce Planet Adventures. You get 50% off, and you can jump in, tap with the community, get some really phenomenal results. And you also get access to more than, at this point, 100 recorded videos that I've done on tapping for different topics or themes or areas of your life that you might need more support. And so I want to make sure that people listening have someplace to go after this conversation here, so that they can practice and feel supported in their journey.
Wonderful. Thanks for doing that.
Amazing. Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much.
What a great offer. Thank you. One last question before we let you go is, what other, so you work with individuals and groups in tapping, what other modalities do you use? Yeah. And I just want to pepper it here real quick so people know that, there's other options available.
Yes. And as I shared a little bit in my journey at the beginning, I started with the ancient systems. So Ayurveda, yoga, pranayama, breath work. So I can definitely bring in aspects of that kind of healing. I also am trained in more of that functional medicine approach. I can do lab testing and protocols with people. I will say I never start there anymore. I always start with more of the emotional, energetic root causes, knowing that there is no one root cause, that we're a confluence of myriad different factors. And so I always do start with the nervous system with my work. And that could look like a lot of tapping, layering in trauma healing, parts work, layering in aspects of NLP, rewiring the communication that you do with yourself, self-talk, understanding how to work with your system, some aspects of even using hypnotic drive to change the way that you operate and function. And so I bring in so many layers from the physical body, movement, breath, as well as communication, how we use language. Again, that dance of geometry and poetry, kind of that dance of using language, but physicality, and bringing all of that into the healing for what that unique person needs most. And the amazing thing is that once each unique person gets the tools and the resourcefulness and the support that they need, it's amazing what they can do.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stacy. We appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. And this has just been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to honor both of you for stepping out into your own life adventure and creating a platform, a forum, and a container where people can continue on their own journeys of mastery and creation and transformation.
Oh, it's our pleasure. It's our passion as well. So be well. Thank you. Friends, if you found the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast helpful, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. It helps others find our podcast.
If you screenshot your review and tag us on Instagram, we'll send you a classic Fierce Planet Adventures sticker for your water bottle, cooler, car, send us a direct message with your mailing address on Instagram, and we'll send you that sticker right out.
Thanks for joining us and live fiercely.